When Scott launched the new Addict about a month ago, it rattled some industry heads, thanks to its incredible value for money. I even dubbed it the new king of endurance road bikes. But now, having got my hands on one and the fact that I've been riding it for the past few weeks, I can share my thoughts on whether or not it really deserves that title.
Let's get some disclaimers out of the way. Firstly, Scott did not pay me to make this video. They just lent me the bike and I'll be giving it back in a couple of days. I didn't get to choose the bike, I was simply assigned one. If you saw my first video on the Addict, then you'll know that if I were to buy one, I would go for the Addict 30, and that would be the model that I would have chosen to review. But alas, a brand cannot simply make any model in any size available for bike testers to ride. And finally, I'm just a normal guy who likes to ride bikes. I'm no expert bike tester like Ronan McLaughlin or Dave Arthur. I have been lucky to ride a lot of different bikes, but ultimately, I'm just sharing my honest opinions on this bike, having ridden it for every ride I've done over the past few weeks.
First up, aesthetics. From seeing the bike in pictures to then seeing it in real life, I'd say it looks as expected. Some bikes look really different when you see them in person, but this one holds true. The generally muted and very toned down branding is something Scott is also doing on its other road models, and while some may see it as quiet luxury, I think it lacks a bit of va-va-voom. I want it to be a bit more shouty. It doesn't have to be in a garish way, but I am seriously missing having a name on the downtube. It borderline feels unbranded. Decals aside, the frame cuts a very sleek shape. Nothing controversial, just clean, smooth lines with a mass market appeal. And the range of colours used across all builds ensure that riders will easily find something that they're happy with.
It's time for pros and cons now, and I'm going to start with the pros. And in a nutshell, the new Addict is a steam engine of a bike. Once it's up to speed, it'll keep you there and will do so in perfect comfort. It feels incredibly calm and stable and very predictable on the descents without any feeling of twitchiness. The manoeuvrability is surprisingly good at low speeds, despite not having a short wheelbase like you'd find on a race bike. I like the integrated storage too. Because you can't see it, you almost forget that it's there. Most road bikes that feature integrated storage have their access ports underneath the bottle cage, making it super obvious. But since the port on the Scott is hidden away underneath the downtube, it maintains the bike's sleek looks. The bike that I was sent came fitted with all the optional extras you'd usually have to buy in addition to the bike itself, such as the frame bag and the rear light. In my opinion, both are worth buying. I loved not having to have anything in my pockets whatsoever. It kept me super comfortable. Clearly, comfort isn't all about geometry, but sometimes it's just about helping the rider feel free and unburdened. Of course, lots of people use saddle bags, but I liked that this bag was in really easy reach while I was riding, and it was comfortably big enough to put my phone in. In the event of a crash, I think it will be more protected being in that frame bag than it would be in my back pocket. The light was also super handy. Since it's magnetic, if I wanted to turn it on or off whilst I was riding, it was really simple just to reach down, grab it, do whatever I wanted, and then refit it. It was so simple. And also, I really couldn't, in good faith, attach any other rear light to this bike when I know that this is an option. I really like the shape of the handlebars. They're comfortable when climbing and resting your hands on the tops thanks to their flattened profile. The subtle flare in the drops provides even more confidence and stability when descending, and the fairly short reach of the bars does help keep you in a nice, relaxed position. I like that you can drop the stem down the steerer tube and play with different heights. You can't always do that on modern bikes that have integrated cockpits. But once you have found what's right for you, do make sure that you have the steerer tube cut down, because this setup is rather ugly, and the effort that Scott has put into ensuring their cockpit is really nice and clean looking, well, it's certainly worth taking advantage of. I'll say that the bike deals with road imperfections really well. Much of this can be attributed to those wide tyres. I found myself purposefully riding into the cracks, divots and small potholes just to see how far it could go, and to be honest, it just ate them up. I never got the feeling that this bike was going to do something unpredictable. It just dealt with the impact without getting twitchy and then kept on going. My last pro before I get onto the cons, and it is a bit of a controversial one, but the wheels on this build are really, really quiet, and I love that. I am not about these aggressively loud free hubs. These wheels are the Fulcrum Wind 42s, and they're not particularly special wheels, but they do a respectable job and will likely be a really good match for the vast majority of customers that buy this bike. Moving on to the cons, and my first one is that the Addict doesn't feel dynamic when you're riding out of the saddle. You can really feel the length of the wheelbase. Despite its good manoeuvrability at lower speeds, when riding at higher speeds or attempting to sprint up a climb, you can feel the bike asking you, why are you doing this? Sit back down, enjoy the ride. The Addict in its current form doesn't spring into life. It's not what I would describe as being a fast accelerating bike. However, I wouldn't attribute this to the bike itself, but instead to the rotating weight of the wheels. These tyres are not super light. While they are great at being wide, durable road tyres, I would suggest changing these to something lighter in summer to make the ride a little bit more dynamic. Wheels with a higher rotating weight do take a little bit longer to get up to speed. But once they are at speed, they do hold the speed very well, exactly in the same way a flywheel works. This, of course, is characteristic of endurance road bikes, because wide tyres and relaxed geometries mean that across the board, they're better suited to doing the thing they're designed for than attacking up climbs, and really, that should be of no surprise to anyone. I do wish the bike came with a computer mount. Thanks to the unique shape of the bars, third-party attachments don't work all that well. And finally, the saddle just wasn't for me, but that's a super personal choice. You would be very lucky to buy a bike that has the perfect saddle for you out of the box. I'm going to share some thoughts now on the actual build that I was using, and that build was the Addict 10. The Force group set is really, really great. It's hard for me to find any complaints about it at all. I do think it's one of the best road group sets that's currently available. Like I mentioned earlier, the wheels on this build aren't anything to write home about, but they are a good pairing and certainly don't hold the bike back more than any other low to mid-range carbon wheel set would. I also really quite liked that this bike didn't have a one-piece carbon cockpit. The ability to play around with handlebar angle and stem height, I think, is perfect for this bike's intended customer. And finally, I also really love the gloss paint that comes on this frame. It just makes it super easy to look after and it just stays looking great. If you saw my first look video, then you'll know the type of value that the new range of Addict bikes is delivering. For those that don't know, here is how the Addict stacks up alongside its key competitors. But I have also added in the newly launched Van Rysel EDR CF Ultra. Van Rysel and Canyon do have a natural advantage over a lot of brands, thanks to their distribution model. So it's very impressive that a premium brand like Scott has been able to compete so aggressively on price. I wonder if Scott is about to trigger a much needed price war amongst the premium brands, because as it stands, I struggle to see why you'd opt for one of its competitors when the difference in price is so large. In my mind, this bike is an obvious no-brainer. It performs incredibly well as an endurance bike and does everything its key competitors do at a much lower price. If you don't want to go for the Canyon Endurace, then this really is the only other sensible option in my eyes. It's time I give this bike a final rating, and I'm going to go in quite heavy and give it a 9 out of 10. It loses marks for the tyres, which I believe do dull its shine, and the lack of an included computer mount is a big shame. But the value, the available optional accessories that integrate so well, and most importantly, the way it performs as a bike to keep you comfortable, I believe does earn itself the title of King of the Endurance Road Bikes. If you're considering buying an endurance bike in the next 6 to 12 months, let me know. Will you go for an Addict or something else?